Speaking of momentum, I do think that perhaps the president may have been a bit enraged yesterday morning after getting the ratings from his final night, but also the polling out of ABC News, the Washington Post, showing that, his approval rating actually went down and Joe Biden's went up over the two conventions.
Well, his tweet storm certainly showed he was reacting to something. We will get to the violence and unrest in Portland in just a moment, but there is fresh new polling following both the Democratic and Republican national conventions showing President Trump's favorability slipping, while Joe Biden steadily climbs. In the latest ABC News Ipsos poll, Trump's favorability sits at 31%, down 4 points since the DNC. 59% have an unfavorable opinion of the president. 46% hold a favorable view of Biden, up 6 points since before the DNC. 40% have an unfavorable view of the former vice president. And when looking at President Trump's handling of the coronavirus, 35% approve, while 63% disapprove. Who are the 35% is all I want to know. Yeah. Meanwhile, the latest Morning Consult poll shows voters edging back toward President Trump off the heels of the Republican National Pageant or Convention. Joe Biden now holds a 6-point lead over President Trump, 50 to 44%. That's down from the 10-point lead he held heading into the convention on August 23rd. But the latest USC Dornsife on Friday found Biden at 53% to Trump's 41%, a margin of 12 points. So there you go.
Yeah, so Jonathan Lemire, a lot of people around the White House were thrilled with what happened during whatever you want to call last week's RNC events. The polls actually, a couple of polls showing within the margins that things may have gotten a little better for the president. But if you look at the ABC News Washington Post approval poll and the rating, Donald Trump's approval ratings actually went down. Joe Biden's went up, and I think pretty considerably. Biden's up 6 points and his unfavorability down 3 points, which is showing to me at least, coming out of this convention, the story seems to be, and I would guess that people inside the White House would be thinking this too, and they may not admit it to the president, but it's got to be frustrating to them that despite the tens of millions of dollars in unfavorable ads thrown at Joe Biden over the past 6 months, despite the fact the president even got impeached over trying to pull in a Ukrainian leader and hold defense spending over him to try to besmirch the reputation of Joe Biden, Biden's numbers just keep going up as far as approval rating goes. We're going to have to start calling him Teflon Joe.
Joe, I think is striking in the last few days, Democrats I've talked to, and perhaps you had the same experience, there seems to have been sort of a collective freakout among Democrats since the Republican convention ended, suggesting that this race was suddenly hurtling Trump's way. But the polling doesn't really back that up at all, at least not yet. As you say, some polls suggest perhaps slight movement towards the president. But let's remember, Joe Biden walked into these conventions with a pretty substantial and, more importantly, stable lead. There hasn't been much that has happened since the onset of the pandemic, and certainly since the aftermath of George Floyd's killing and the president's walk across Lafayette Square, that has really changed the fundamentals of this race. Yes, it has dipped and moved a little bit around the margins to this point. And yes, both sides privately will acknowledge it has tightened some, but both sides privately, and in some cases publicly, acknowledge that Joe Biden is still winning. And forget the national polls, but in the battleground states that really matter, he still has a 4, 5, 6, or 7-point lead in all of the states, perhaps save North Carolina. Now, obviously, it does seem like the Republicans, and you're right, the White House was pleased with the staging of the events last week. We are still going to see the aftermath of that in the coming days, and what we don't know yet are how the events of Kenosha and Portland are going to change things. We know the president is is traveling to Kenosha, Wisconsin tomorrow. Joe Biden is going to speak on the unrest in America and how President Trump has added to that today in a speech in Pennsylvania, and his aides are working on his own visit to Wisconsin potentially later this week. But right now, this race still remains the same. Now it's fully joined. It's on now, as they say. Joe Biden is resuming his campaigning. The president and his team are pleased about that. They feel like they've pushed Biden out of, quote, his basement sooner than he wanted. They think that the more he's out there in the public, perhaps that will lead to some sort of gaffe or other blunder that could close the race. But right now, Joe, we are still where we are a month or two ago. Maybe it's closed slightly, but Joe Biden is in the enviable position 2 months out. He's winning.
Yeah, Reverend Al, here we are moving into September. Things are pretty much the same. And again, please correct me if I'm wrong. It seems to me the only thing that has changed, if you look at the polling since 2 weeks of conventions, is that Donald Trump's approval rating ticked down slightly and Joe Biden's approval rating went up a good bit. He's sitting at 46% approval rating. Those disapproving of him went down 3 points.
Clearly, Joe Biden rising with approval and the president coming down is bad news for the White House, no matter how they spin it. They're now playing this, we're in survival mode, trying to spin it as if this is some advancement. The thing that I observed, Joe, over the weekend, we had the big march in Washington Friday, which was probably the biggest civil rights march in the last several years. The energy, I mean, you have to remember now, we had this on a work day in the middle of a pandemic. And for tens of thousands of people to come out is a signal to the White House that people are energized to come out to vote. They will come out and stand up, and did it peacefully because the tone is set at the top, unlike the president is doing to his supporters. Not one incident with several 100,000 people there, and you have no problems, no incidents, and people ready to come and stay out all day. That's a signal what they will do election day. So if I was the White House, between the polling and the turnouts, I think I would be very concerned because it shows a determination against this kind of divisive, hate-filled atmosphere that this president has established.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.